Welcome to Life Stories, where one unexpected knock on a hotel door can shatter everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and family. What would you do if the person you trusted most wasn't who you thought they were? If the life you built with your own hands could crumble in a single breath? Today's story is about a man who tried to give his family a beautiful surprise, only to uncover a devastating truth he never saw coming. A story of betrayal, resilience, and the kind of strength you only find when your world falls apart. Stay with us, because sometimes the most heartbreaking endings can lead to the most powerful new beginnings. Let's dive into Jack Whitmore's unforgettable journey. Jack Whitmore never thought a simple idea, one born over burnt toast and half-hearted cereal, could crack his world wide open. It was a Wednesday morning like any other in Austin, Texas. Jack, 50 years old, and clinging desperately to the chaos of his children's adolescence, juggled breakfast disasters while trying to sip his coffee fast enough to feel alive. Luke, his 15-year-old son, was glued to his phone, earbuds in, oblivious. Emma, Jack's 10-year-old daughter, spun her spoon through her cereal, humming some Taylor Swift song under her breath. Rebecca Megan, to everyone except Jack, had been away on a consulting trip in San Diego for 3 days already. 4 more to go. Longer than usual. Longer than comfortable. Jack watched Emma's small hands trace circles on the table, her face drooping with the weight of missing her mother. That's when it struck him. A reckless, stupid, wonderful idea. "What if we surprise her?" Jack said aloud, voice rough with mourning and hope. Emma's head snapped up, her eyes shining like he'd offered her Disneyland and a puppy all at once. "Really? Like, really show up?" "Yeah," Jack nodded, a genuine smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Book a flight today. Be there by tomorrow night. Imagine her face." Even Luke pulled one earbud out. "That'd be kinda sick," he said with the flat enthusiasm of a teenage boy, which in Jack's experience was a full standing ovation. By noon, flights were booked, school absences arranged, and Jack's mind buzzed with images of Megan's face lighting up. Maybe, he thought, it would remind her how much they still mattered. Maybe it would bridge whatever invisible gap had been growing between them. But beneath the excitement, a kernel of unease rooted itself deep in Jack's gut. He tried calling Megan 3 times that day, voicemail every time. Not unusual, he told himself. Big client meetings, late nights, important deals. Still, by the time their plane landed at San Diego International Airport Thursday night, that unease had hardened into something heavier, something that tasted like fear. The city was buzzing as they made their way toward the waterfront hotel. Emma chattered in the back seat about all the things she wanted to tell her mom. Luke mostly stared out the window, arms crossed. Jack drove in silence, jaw tight. He tried calling again. This time the phone rang. No answer. Jack's pulse quickened. At the Marriott's polished marble lobby, Jack told the kids to wait by the fireplace. He approached the front desk, trying to ignore how his palms were sweating. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Marriott Bayside," the receptionist said with a professional smile. "How can I help you?" Jack cleared his throat. "My wife is staying here, Megan Whitmore. I'd like to check in and surprise her." The receptionist's fingers danced over her keyboard. "Yes, Mrs. Whitmore is with us. Would you like me to call her room?" "Please." The phone rang. Once, twice, 5 times. No answer. A small frown flickered across the receptionist's face. "I'm sorry, sir. No answer. But I can give you your room keys. You're in 732. Mrs. Whitmore is in 718. Same floor. Good. He could surprise her. Looks like Mrs. Whitmore checked in with a +1, the receptionist added, almost too casually, avoiding his gaze. Jack's heart stopped. +1? It's just, that's how the reservation shows. 2 guests. I'm sure it's nothing. But Jack wasn't sure at all. He grabbed the keys with a hand that didn't feel like his own. His world had begun to tilt, and he hadn't even knocked on her door yet. Upstairs, he shepherded the kids into their room with some excuse about washing up. Emma giggled, bouncing on the bed. Luke watched Jack, silent and suspicious. Jack slipped down the hall to room 718, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure someone would hear it. He knocked. No answer. Music floated under the door. Laughter, low, intimate. Jack texted, "I'm outside your door. Surprise." Inside, movement stopped. The door cracked open, and there she was, Megan, hair tousled, bathrobe slipping from one shoulder, face pale. Not with surprise, not with joy, but with dread. "Jack," she hissed, slipping into the hall and pulling the door nearly shut behind her. "What are you doing here?" "The kids and I," Jack said, his voice tight, "thought we'd surprise you." From behind her, a man's voice floated out, casual, intimate. "Babe, who is it?" Jack pushed the door wider before Megan could stop him. A man, tall, fit, somewhere in his early 40s, stood inside, pulling on his dress shirt, buttons half done. Jack's eyes locked onto him like a missile seeking a target. "Who the hell are you?" Jack asked, voice deadly soft. The man blinked, looking between Jack and Megan. "I'm Eric Mason, from the New York office." He hesitated. "I didn't know she was married." Jack's world went dark around the edges. Megan reached out like she could physically pull the air back into the room. "Jack, it's not what you think." But it was exactly what he thought. And worse. Behind him, the hallway spun. 17 years of marriage. 2 children sleeping just down the hall. A surprise turned to ash in his hands. Jack stumbled backward, breath stolen, fists clenched so tight his nails cut his palms. Megan was saying something, begging, explaining, lying. It all sounded the same now. He turned away without a word, without even looking back. Back toward the elevator. Back toward his kids. Back toward a life that no longer existed. He didn't know how he would tell them. He only knew one thing. He couldn't lie. Not anymore. What would you do if one moment destroyed everything you thought was real? Could you forgive a betrayal you never saw coming? Or would you walk away forever? And so began the longest night of Jack Whitmore's life, one that would force him to choose. Fight for the family he thought he knew, or build something new from the ruins. Continue to Part 2, Shattered Glass and Silent Goodbyes. Jack leaned against the cold wall of the elevator, fists buried deep in the pockets of his jeans, heart hammering like a war drum in his chest. The soft ding announced the arrival at his floor, but he didn't move right away. He needed a second, a minute, a year. In room 732, he found Luke sprawled on one of the queen beds, flipping mindlessly through TV channels, while Emma sat cross-legged on the carpet, humming as she organized her stuffed animals for the big surprise. She had no idea the world she trusted was already crumbling around her. Jack pasted a smile onto his face and stepped inside. "Hey guys, Mom's finishing up a call. She'll be by in a few." Emma's face lit up. Did she cry? Was she super surprised? Jack swallowed against the knot in his throat. "Yeah, sweetheart. She was definitely surprised." Luke's sharp eyes didn't miss the crack in his father's voice, but he said nothing, just muted the TV and waited. There was a knock at the door. Emma sprinted to answer it before Jack could move. "Mommy!" Megan walked in, freshly dressed, hair brushed, face bright with the professional polish Jack had seen so many times at corporate parties. She looked perfect, untouchable, like she hadn't just shattered everything 10 minutes ago. "Hey, my loves," she said, sweeping Emma into her arms. Her eyes flicked briefly to Jack, pleading, warning, desperate. Jack met her gaze with cold steel. "Hey, Mom," Luke said from the bed, voice flat. Megan hesitated, then crossed to him and ruffled his hair, but Luke ducked away with a muttered, "I'm not 5." Jack watched it happen, the tiny rejection, the hairline fracture in what used to be effortless affection. It hurt worse than anything Megan could have said. Room service arrived, burgers and fries and chocolate cake. Emma chattered excitedly about their plans. Seaport Village, the USS Midway, riding bikes along the harbor. Megan nodded and smiled and made promises she wouldn't keep. Halfway through dinner, Megan's phone buzzed on the nightstand. She flinched. Jack caught the name flashing across the screen, Eric Mason. Without thinking, without caring, Jack picked up the phone and silenced it. Their eyes locked. Hers were wide, terrified. Emma didn't notice. Luke did. "So are you staying with us tonight, Mom?" Luke asked, too casual, too sharp. Megan fumbled for words. "I have. A client dinner I can't miss." Jack let the lie hang in the air, heavy and sour. Afterward, He took the kids down to the waterfront to walk off the suffocating tension. Emma skipped ahead, dazzled by the glittering boats at Mission Bay, her laughter ringing like wind chimes. Luke walked beside Jack in silence, hands jammed deep in his hoodie pockets. "You gonna tell me what's going on, Dad?" Luke asked finally, without looking at him. Jack hesitated. The truth was a loaded gun in his mouth. "Your mom?" he started, then faltered. "Things aren't good between us right now," Luke snorted. "No kidding." They stopped by the railing. Jack watched the dark water slap gently against the docked boats. He remembered taking Luke fishing here when he was 7, teaching him how to cast, how to be patient. "I caught her with someone else," Jack said quietly. Luke stiffened, staring hard at the water. "Yeah," Jack whispered. "I didn't want you to find out like this." Luke was quiet for a long moment. "Is she leaving us?" The question cut Jack deeper than he thought possible. "No," he said. "At least, not like that. She's still your mom. She still loves you." Luke kicked at a loose pebble on the ground, his jaw set tight. "Doesn't feel like love." Jack didn't have an answer. They walked in silence back to the hotel, Emma singing to herself, blissfully unaware of the cracks widening under her feet. Back in the room, Megan was gone. A note sat on the desk, written in her looping cursive. "Had to meet a client. Love you all. See you tomorrow." Jack crumpled it in his fist. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep clutching her stuffed dolphin, Jack sat on the balcony with Luke, a blanket wrapped around both of them to fight the chill. "I'm not mad at you, Dad," Luke said out of nowhere. Jack blinked. "You should be." Luke shrugged. "You didn't screw this up." Jack closed his eyes, feeling the wind whip through him. "I should have seen it coming." "You didn't want to," Luke said, wise beyond his years. "None of us did." Jack stared out over the glittering bay, wrestling with a truth so ugly he barely dared name it. Maybe he and Megan had been broken for years. Maybe the betrayal started long before tonight. Maybe they both wore smiles like armor and prayed no one would look too closely. A new thought took root in his mind, a terrifying one. What if it wasn't about saving the marriage anymore? What if it was about saving the kids and himself? Tomorrow, he realized, there would be no family sightseeing, no fairy tale reunion. Tomorrow would be about survival. Have you ever faced a moment when protecting your peace meant letting go of the very people you once lived for? Jack Whitmore thought he knew heartbreak. But the real test, the true betrayal, was yet to come. Stay with me for part 3, The Last Goodbye. The morning came gray and heavy, as if the sky itself knew what the day would bring. Jack Whitmore stood by the hotel window, watching the mist drift over Mission Bay. He hadn't slept. Luke was still out cold in the other bed, breathing steady. Emma, curled like a kitten, clutched her dolphin tight to her chest. The sight of them, so innocent, so breakable, twisted something deep inside him. He had already packed their bags. He knew what had to happen. There would be no breakfast buffet, no ferry rides or souvenir shops. No pretending. Jack had spent 17 years patching cracks in his marriage with hope and good intentions. Last night, standing on that balcony, he realized hope wasn't enough when the foundation itself had rotted. A soft knock sounded on the door. Jack's heart tightened. He crossed the room and cracked it open. Megan stood there, pale and worn, dark circles under her eyes that no amount of makeup could hide. She looked at him like she didn't know where to start, like she was searching for a script she hadn't bothered to write. I didn't sleep either," she said. Jack said nothing. "I thought maybe we could talk." She tried again. He stepped into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind him to keep the kids from hearing. "You should have thought about talking before you found someone else's bed," he said, voice low. She flinched. "Jack, please. I made a mistake, a terrible one, but it doesn't have to end like this." He stared at her, this woman he had loved since college, the woman who had carried his children, the woman who had once sworn forever to him with tears in her eyes. And he realized something. He didn't hate her, but he didn't know her anymore, either. "I'm taking them home today," Jack said. "I'm getting them out of here." "And then what?" Megan asked, her voice cracking. "We just give up?" Jack ran a hand over his face, feeling every second of the sleepless night dragging through his bones. We owe them better than this circus. If you want to fight for them, for us, do it the right way, from a distance, until we figure out if there's anything left worth saving. Megan's shoulders sagged. Tears filled her eyes, but Jack couldn't tell if they were for him, for herself, or just the life slipping through her fingers. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. You didn't just hurt me, Jack said. You broke something in them, too, and you don't even see it yet. He turned away, feeling the conversation close like a door behind him. When he returned to the room, Luke was awake, pulling on his sneakers without a word. Emma rubbed her eyes sleepily. Are we going to the harbor today? She asked, voice hopeful. Jack crouched beside her. No, baby. We're going home. Her mouth opened in protest, but something in Jack's face must have warned her. She nodded instead, trusting him the way only a child could. It made the betrayal that much sharper. They packed up in silence. Jack checked them out, declining the breakfast vouchers Megan had left at the desk like a cheap apology. They made their way to the airport through streets that glittered under the rising sun. On the plane, Emma slept against Jack's side, her tiny hand wrapped around two of his fingers. Luke stared out the window, his headphones on, but no music playing. Somewhere over Arizona, Luke finally spoke. Are you gonna divorce her? He asked, so quietly Jack almost missed it over the hum of the engines. Jack exhaled slowly. I don't know yet. Luke nodded, accepting the uncertainty with a maturity that made Jack's chest ache. She doesn't deserve you, Luke said after a moment. Jack gave a sad smile. Maybe, but she's still your mom, and whatever happens between us, I need you to remember that. Luke looked at him then, really looked, and Jack saw the man his son would one day become. Steady, strong, a man who understood that love wasn't simple, that sometimes the people you loved the most were the ones who hurt you the deepest. I know, Luke said. I just wish it was different. Jack squeezed his shoulder. Me too, kiddo. More than you know. They landed in Austin to a sky just as gray as San Diego's. Jack called a car to take them home. Megan had offered to fly back the same day, but Jack declined. He needed space to think, to breathe. Their house felt hollow when they arrived. Dust motes floated in the beams of light cutting through the windows. Photos lined the walls, family vacations, Christmas mornings, birthdays, and every one of them felt like a ghost. Emma ran to her room to find her dolls. Luke retreated upstairs without a word. Jack stood in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter, willing himself not to fall apart. The doorbell rang. For a moment, he thought it might be Megan. But when he opened the door, it was his sister, Sarah, standing there with 2 coffees and a tight, worried smile. I figured you could use one, she said simply. Jack took the coffee, the warmth grounding him. Sarah said nothing more. She just came inside, set the other cup down, and sat at the kitchen table waiting. Jack stared at her, at the woman who had pulled him out of trouble more times than he could count when they were kids, at the only person he trusted to see him break and not try to fix it. Slowly, he sat across from her. And for the first time since San Diego, Jack Whitmore let himself cry. He cried for the life he thought he had. He cried for the children upstairs who deserved better. He cried for the man he used to be and the man he would have to become. When the storm finally passed, Jack wiped his face and found Sarah watching him, not with pity, but with fierce, unyielding love. You're stronger than you think, she said. Jack nodded, a small ember of something sparking to life inside him. Hope. Not for his marriage, but for himself, for Luke, for Emma, for the life they would rebuild, brick by painful brick. He didn't know what the future looked like. It would be messy and raw and nothing like the life he had imagined, but it would be real, and it would be theirs. What part of Jack's journey resonated with you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you love this story, comment 100 below. Tell us, where are you watching from? Share this video with friends who would love a story about resilience, heartbreak, and hope. Thank you for being a part of Life Stories.